If you're travelling in London on the Underground today and look at a tube map, you'll see that there are 9 zones. But how do we end up with those 9, and when did it all start? Up until the beginning of the 1980s, all single and return fares for travelling on the tube were charged on a point-to-point basis. But that all changed in 1981 when Ken Livingstone was voted leader of the GLC. He brought in the first fare zones in October 1981, when the area we know as Zone 1 today was made into 2 overlapping zones known as West End and City, within which flat fares were applied, a first for the Underground. Later the next year, other zones were introduced behind the scenes but were not made official until the year after that, when a brand new ticket type was also introduced. Yes, it was in 1983 that the Travelcard first appeared, and initially it was only available as a season ticket, not a daily pass, and was also only valid on bus and tube services, not British Rail. This meant a typical commuter might have a season ticket to take their train into a London terminus, and then have a second season ticket, their Travelcard, to allow them to travel around London on the bus and tube. With the introduction of the Travelcard came 5 numbered zones. The previous City and West End zones became Zone 1, and then a band approximately 3 miles around this became Zone 2, and the rest of Greater London was numbered 3A, 3B and 3C. The Travelcard proved popular. So popular that it made sense to bring in a daily off-peak version, and that's what happened in 1984, but it was still only valid on buses and tubes. London didn't get a fully integrated all-modes transport ticket until 1985. That's when the Capital Card was launched. It too was also a season ticket at first, but the important thing was that it now allowed commuters to have one combined ticket, which let them travel on bus, tube and rail. It was a revolution for travel in the capital. Just as the Travelcard had been launched as a season ticket with the one-day variant coming later, the one-day version of the Capital Card took a year to arrive in 1986. You could make unlimited off-peak journeys with a price based on what zone you were starting in, and in addition, and in a very smart move that made them incredibly popular, they were also available to buy not just from the London Zone stations, but now any railway station in the network southeast area. So there were 2 products, the Travelcard and the Capital Card, which continued for 3 years until sensibly the railway companies got together and worked together and merged the 2 to form the new Travelcard. Both British Rail and Underground stations sold them, and it was essentially the Capital Card rebranded as the Travelcard, allowing travel on all modes. And at the same time, zones 3A, 3B and 3C were renumbered to 3, 4 and 5. Then in October 1990, Zone 5 was split into 2 to form Zone 6, but intriguingly at this point, the zones still weren't shown on the pocket tube map. It wasn't until after TfL were formed that zones first appeared on the pocket map in May 2001. And when it did, there were also additional lettered zones A, B, C and D for stations on the Metropolitan line that were deemed to be outside of Zone 6. That lasted until 2008 when the lettered zones were changed to create Zones 7, 8 and 9 instead. And so there have been 9 zones on the tube map since 2008. Some stations on the Overground and TfL rail have since been placed outside the 9 numbered fare zones and are labelled Special Fares Apply. In fact, the computer system behind Oyster has the capacity for just a maximum of 15 zones, but that is a story for another video. It's also worth mentioning some splendid anomalies in the top right of the map involving the Central Line. Stations north of Woodford should really be outside of Zone 6, but a generous subsidy by Essex County Council means that TfL put them into Zones 5 and 6 instead, thus making them more fare-friendly to commuters. The stations between Roding Valley and Barkingside on the Hainault Loop also used to all be in Zone 5 until it was decided in 2007 to move them so that the whole loop would be in Zone 4. And to finish up, it's worth noting that with the creation of TfL in the year 2000, they brought in Oyster cards in 2003 on buses and tubes, and wasn't fully rolled out across national rail services in London until 2010. Contactless bank card payments were introduced onto the buses in 2012, which went cashless by 2014, the same year that contactless cards also came to tube and trains. And that brings us right up to date with the tube map, its 9 zones, and 99% of people now choosing an Oyster or contactless card instead of a paper ticket.